Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Bank Marketing Show. I'm Dan Navalis.
Dan, how's it going? This is Chris Bates. So glad to be with you for another great episode today.
Likewise. It's been, I was just looking through our list here. It's been a while since it's just been you and me.
It has. Yeah, we've had a bunch of great guests on, and I know we've actually got some more coming up soon as well. So it's nice to take an interlude.
Yeah. We were both kind of reminded recently of some previous clients we've started working with and had a conversation like this a lot. Seen a lot of banks that have tried things and then just kind of get convinced that they don't work. Mm-hmm. So just as, working on, different marketing tactics with a lot of different banks, we've seen a lot of different kind of patterns and approaches. And today we just wanted to break down a couple of the things that we see and kind of break them apart.
Yeah, I think the value to you guys, our listeners today, bank leadership, marketers, et cetera, is that these are things that we hear repeatedly, frequently, those types of things. And, Dan, we talked about it a little bit before we started. It's not just about money. It's not just about workload or bandwidth, or it's a combination of a lot of things and a lot of reasons why marketing that either is perceived as it doesn't work, or it's not given a chance to work, or it doesn't work. One of those things. And so often there are reasons for that. So I think our discussion today, Dan, that's going to outline, we're going to give you some examples of what we've seen. And maybe, you guys can look in the mirror a little bit and go, yeah, we kind of made a call about some marketing that was very similar to that example and all that. But then we're going to talk about better ways to do it, some solutions.
I think we could easily call this episode like "Why Your Marketing Isn't Working."
Yeah,
but the stuff we're going to talk about isn't just marketing tactics that don't work. It's more of just approaches to things that we've seen play out at a number of different banks we've worked with.
Yeah. And Dan, before we dive into our first example, I think one of the really pertinent things here too is marketing is changing and evolving faster than ever. Yes, that's about AI. Yes, it's about platforms evolving faster. It's lots of things. So, part of this might be considering, well, yeah, we tried that 3 years ago. And, maybe any number of reasons that it didn't work well, or we gave up on it, or whatever the case may be. Well, hey, fast forward, 6 months or 3 years or whatever the case may be. And with the way that things are moving quicker than ever, and tactics are changing and AI is integrating into just about everything that we do, this is one for everybody to pay attention to today, Dan.
Yeah. And it's, I think you're probably like, right, even if you've tried a thing a few years ago, a few years is a big length of time in digital marketing. So retry stuff, come at it from a different angle. Your bank may be in a different spot business-wise than it was a few years ago. New branch, or changes in your approach, changes to the brand, and tactics that didn't work before may work again. But there's a few different kind of patterns, I guess, that we've seen that we wanted to go through. The first one being jumping into a tactic. Let's call it Google ads or Facebook ads or whatever it is, and not seeing results quick enough, and then just having it put in the category, well, that doesn't work for us. We tried it doesn't work. Mm-hmm. And I had an example from a bank I started working with in the past, and they came to me and just said, hey, we spent, I don't know, $30,000 on Google ads the previous year. They wanted to change their approach to marketing. They spun up, they sectioned off a budget for this, and they said, we need Google ads. We need a digital presence. So they dropped a bunch of money in Google ads, and it didn't work.
Yeah, and that's one of those cases where maybe it really didn't work. It wasn't, but there's, I know what we want to cover today is helping explain the why. Some reasons around that, right, Dan? So what were some of the why? What actually happened behind that?
The first thing try to do there is like unpack that, right?
Yep.
What do you mean they don't work? What were you expecting to happen, and then what actually happened? Were you expecting, so maybe expectations were off, right? You expected to turn on this Google Ads funnel and just start getting, deposit accounts opened left and right.
Yep.
Maybe the expectations were a little broad, right? You could dive into that a little more too and just say, like, what's the customer experience from those ads? What did the ads say? What did they link to?
Yeah.
What did your landing page look like?
Right.
So
yeah. Walk through the whole detailed strategy, because somewhere in that chain, there probably are some links that are broken, in the process of the tactics. So walk through, what some of those kind of broken things around that strategy could be.
Yeah, I mean, I think expectations wise, it's, you would, I say this a lot. You wouldn't put a billboard on the highway and expect people to just veer off at the next exit to come to your branch.
Yeah.
Right. That billboard raises brand awareness. It gets your logo in front of them, and it makes them more receptive when they see other forms of your advertising. So Google Ads, are designed to get in front of people when they're searching for like banking products. It's a little different, right? The billboard analogy is probably better for like banner ads, but the point I'm trying to make is, if your expectation is that just thousands of deposit accounts will start opening, like it's not quite going to happen like that. It still takes a long time to get people to switch banks and make decisions. So first off, I'd say before you start dropping money, like know what it's going into.
Yeah.
Second, look at that. I mentioned the customer experience. When somebody sees a Google ad, what's their mindset? Their mindset is, I'm looking for a bank, or I need a loan, or whatever it is.
Yep.
And then your ad appears. So is the text in that ad going to speak to them in that moment?
Does it solve a pain point? Is it yes? Yeah. Is it specific to whatever that query was?
Yeah, go Google the queries you're trying to show up for. Look what other banks are advertising for those search terms, and look what their text says. And if yours is trusted and local, like I don't know.
Yeah, if it's that broad, that's right. So it depends on what it is. I like what you said on the front end of it. Is was the strategy fully developed? So when you walk all the way through that, and you mentioned the messaging and creative. So Dan, that's a crucial, and that's kind of what we're talking about. Is the messaging speaking to pain point resolution or opportunity or something that is engaging, number one, and then are the CTAs there? Is the call to action there? So if your query is about reworking my house, adding a room onto the house, something like that, and so you're in the HELOC category, and all of that, and then but your ad is just, we're a bank, we're a trusted local partner, like you say, then you're going, well, that's not, they're not going to click on that, they're not going to initiate that, so that's a broken link in the process there. That, is not.
Your text might say something like, we have a financial solution for every need, but it needs to actually talk about the need.
There
you
go.
To get specific and like, what are the needs? Because when somebody is Googling stuff, a lot of times people Google like banks near me, but not all the time, and you can bid on specific keywords and then tailor your text to that, to what problem you actually solve.
Yeah.
So ad copy, right, is one level.
The whole creative. Yeah.
We've got other episodes on creative and messaging and stuff like that, but the point for this episode is, then what happened? Look at the whole user experience, right? The ad, if you do get them to click, where does that go?
Right. Now let's step over the fence. That's right. Now what's that look like? Yeah.
Most of the traffic on Google is mobile these days, is 70%, 80%. And your site has to look good there. And you'd still be surprised at how many bank sites don't look good on mobile, right? Or even really good marketing teams just have not opened the website on mobile.
Or the page doesn't load quickly. Yeah. And you get the wheel of death, and it's while the page is trying to load, and somebody on a mobile device is not going to be patient for that.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, does the landing page have a strong story? Is it problem solving for the customer? Does it have a form? Is the form easy to fill out, or do you force people to call, and people using mobile might not want to call? You think through that customer experience, right? And even if you have the most well-optimized Google ad, the most, compelling ad copy for your Google ad, and a super compelling story on the landing page, you still might not be getting calls because, I'm not gonna call. You might not be getting form fills because your form is 30 things deep, or it scrolls off the end of the page on mobile. So there's something just, like you said, is slow, or something weird about it, and people will just hop off.
Or the content on the page doesn't match up to the ad that someone clicked on, either just from a copy content in the case
or
of
you're
the
driving them to the
ad,
homepage.
or
if
he goes to the homepage and you expect them to go scroll through and find HELOC, when that's actually what they clicked on, and it's like, no, it's almost like misdirection, and people aren't going to I got to take some extra time to scroll through and find what I want on this bank's website. They're not going to do that, or very infrequently. Or number two, it almost feels like misdirection, and the level of trust with online clicking through to things these days is very low for all of us. We all do that. So it needs to match up really well, really quickly. Either same copy message, or in the case of a display ad, same images, those types of things. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, and so none of these things are problems with Google Ads.
Right.
This is not a problem with Google Ads itself. Google Ads may be a great tactic for you, but to the example of the bank that spent 30 grand on Google Ads in a year and just says they don't work, I think they would have been better served with a chunk of that going to a brand messaging project, a marketing strategy kind of project. Spend some money on a really good landing page.
Yeah.
Make sure the forms are good. Think through all those steps. Spend some time and a little of your budget. If you got a $30K budget, that's not nothing. But spend a third of it, on the strategy, the approach, the copy, the art, the making, putting a good form on there. And then spend the remainder, spend 15 or 20K on the ads instead of 30. But I guarantee you'd get more ROI out of that 30K if you put, more prep into it and spent less on the ads themselves. Say total expenditure is still 30K, but you're going to get better ROI if you're doing more prep for it.
Yes. Dan, I loved what you described as we were preparing for this episode, and called it blaming the channel instead of the execution. And this is a classic case of that it wasn't that Google Ads don't work. And everybody listening, obviously, you can substitute any kind of marketing. We could be talking about SEO. We could be talking about, social platform ads. We could be talking about direct mail, for that matter. You can do that very wrong, and go, oh, well, that didn't work. We spent 10 grand on a direct mail campaign. And you're like, well, same set of issues. Is it strategically planned well? Is it easy for the target market? Is it targeted correctly? Yes, targeting is a nuance. Kind of say that with quotes because of compliance issues, but we can still, target messaging and those types of things. So there's so many questions here, and blaming the channel instead of the execution is a lame way to go about it. Yeah.
Some point on the direct mail thing you just said is a lot of direct mail is still done through old school direct mail companies.
Yep.
And I like to say, and I always say, if you ask a direct mail company if you should do direct mail, you ask an SEO company if you should do SEO, they're going to say yes. And it's not that these things don't work, but it's that if you just drop 30 grand on a direct mail to the 10 closest zip codes to your branch, it's not going to get ROI, right? You've got to put some strategy into that. put the 30% of your budget to strategy or planning, thinking through the stuff, and you'll get more more ROI out of it. But direct mail companies are not, the traditional ones are not thinking about brand strategy for banks.
Yeah.
Right. Just as like, I'm not very good at like telling you how to pull a zip code list for postcards, direct mail postcards. Like, I'm going to rely on the direct mail companies for that. But I can put together a strategy to make that more effective.
There you go.
And they'll put together the list of zip codes. SEO, same thing. Like the SEO company is not going to necessarily be great at like the brand story and how to differentiate from every other community bank from a marketing perspective. But they are going to be really good at how to optimize a headline based on the brand story that you've already got. But if you don't have that brand story, they're going to be optimizing stuff, and it's going to optimize towards the sort of the median community bank.
Yeah.
So I think the point with this first kind of pattern, right, is like the tactics are going to like amplify what you've already got, what's already there.
Yeah.
But you need this foundation. Work on the foundation. Make sure your foundation is in good shape before you start really amping up the spend.
Right. The strategy, and by the foundation, you mean is the strategy there, and then is the whole process and execution of the process and the customer experience all the way through to conversion. It is that as it needs to be. Yeah. That's a great one. Well, yeah, I like how you labeled that one. And Dan, I was telling you a little bit of a story. We kind of labeled this one the underdosing problem, and an example of a bank client of ours who came to us with another scenario of this marketing. We tried that and it didn't work. We tried SEO for a couple of months and it didn't help. And I'll qualify this as SEO or GEO, with AI engines these days as well. So that was the identified problem. And so when I got a couple of questions deeper in a discovery process, he said, well, yeah, we tried it for a couple of months and it didn't work. And without, kind of stomping on that, I tried to help educate a bit, if you will, that, SEO and GEO are culminations of multiple processes under which you are graded, if you will, as to whether you're going to rank above someone else, either in a specific keyword set or a specific location or, whatever you're trying to achieve. And so SEO is a culmination of lots of things. It's building a house that requires foundation, framing, sheetrock, electrical, plumbing, roof, it's all these things. You can't just expect that to happen in a couple of months' time. Now, we all know that SEO it depends on where you're starting from. People have different starting points and all of that. But again, it is a process. It is not an event. So, that was the problem. You gave the analogy, Dan, of, you don't take antibiotics for 2 days and they go, oh, well, those didn't work. I don't feel better or I didn't get well. It's like, well, okay, that's not that's not how antibiotics work. You got to take the whole dosage. Yeah.
You're supposed to take them for 10 days and you stop at 7 or 8 and then the infection comes back. Like that's the same kind of thing as.
Yeah.
And that goes back to like we were talking about expectations a minute ago. Like you've got to know the expectations for the tactic you're doing. You should know going into SEO, it's going to take a long time.
Yep.
And it's a testing and learning sort of approach of there's dozens of different keywords to rank on, dozens of different zip codes that you're probably in, and so on and so forth. And like, if you just jump in and say, well, on week 3, we didn't rank number 1 for, bank near me in, the middle of Manhattan.
Right. Yeah.
Your expectations are a little bit off.
Yeah. Well, and another similar example that I had from a client of ours, a bank client of ours, did the same thing. And actually, the strategy, they let us as their agency partner in on the strategy. So everything that we talked about earlier in this episode, Dan, was pretty much lined out. And we had a good landing page. We had good copy content. We had pretty much the right strategy in place. And kind of at the last minute, I never knew who it was, but board or somebody got spooked on the budget and all of that. So they were like, yeah, let's go ahead and try it. So this was in a significant, fairly major metro area in the southeastern United States, and they ran this digital ad campaigns for $500 a month. And guess what? It didn't work.
Yeah.
I even told them, hey, guys, if that's all you can do is $500 a month, you need to just put that into something else. No. We want to try this and see if we can crawl before we run. And I respect that. Crawl before you run. But if you spread the mustard so thin, and you're trying to break into the Atlanta, Georgia market and spending a few $100 a month, it's.
Yeah, you're not getting enough reps.
Come on. Yeah. So it's even with the right strategy in place, if you underdose even in the budget. So it's kind of like figure out from demographic data research or whatever like we do for a lot of our clients before digital ad campaigns. We do enough groundwork to say, hey, we need to be at least here on the budget to be effective.
Right.
Or don't do it. I don't mean to be crass, but it is. It's better than wasting money.
Yeah.
Kind of like the old days of newspaper. I mean, if you're going to do a 16th of a page, on the back of the whatever section in the newspaper, and you're going to expect tons of new accounts to open from that, it's not going to happen. So in the digital realm, it's the same thing.
Yeah. You got to know what you're getting into. There's a lot of different tactics, and so if your budget is only $500 a month and that's it, like there's other tactics. Put it somewhere else. Try different things, but realize it's the equivalent of using the billboard analogy. Like you could do the $3,000 billboard on the really well-trafficked highway, or if you only got $500, you're going to be the little billboard on the farm road.
Yeah.
And fine, but understand what you're getting, and don't expect 10,000 calls. Expect a couple of farmers that drive that farm road to see it.
Yeah.
And if that's the point of it, great.
Yeah.
But then you're making the billboard speak to a farmer problem. And you're talking about being an ag bank, something like that, but like not the, we're the cool bank for, Gen Z people in Atlanta.
Right.
And just this, the mismatch, the length of time, recognize it just takes, takes time for these things to work too.
Yeah. So we talked about wrong strategy, lack of strategy, and implementation. We talked about kind of underdosing. And as you and I were having an earlier conversation around this, Dan, you had some thoughts around another category, which is it actually, we tried that and it actually isn't right when it didn't fit. Is another kind of set of issues around this, right? I think you had an example that you had thought about.
Well, no, I mean, it's an extension of what we were just talking about, right? That like sometimes a tactic that sounds really good, in general it might sound really good because it worked for that bank in Atlanta. But is that same tactic going to translate to a small rural town?
Your question is it maybe it's not a fit? I got you.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's not a fit for your town. And this is, I've seen this problem. This usually comes up, a lot of community banks that have a couple branches in small rural areas, and they're trying to move to the bigger market, and it's just the marketing tactics and even the brand story and stuff that they've got that works well in the smaller towns might not work in the bigger town.
Yep.
So, and I mean, and even if you're not moving into a bigger town, right, this can apply too of like, if you're, an ag bank trying to win, small businesses, the messaging is different.
There you go. Yeah.
And it gets back to what we talk a lot about on the show is talk about customer problems. Well, like ag customer problems are different than business customer problems.
Yep.
Big city customer problems are different than rural customer problems. And so you've got to match your tactic to that.
Yeah.
So like I'm working with a bank kind of like that, some rural branches, some branches in a bigger kind of town, and they've got a traditional kind of name where the name of their first branch or the name of the town where their first branch is in the name of the bank. Well, in the bigger town they're trying to move into, nobody knows that
Right.
little town.
Right.
Even though it's 45 minutes away, but like they don't know it.
Yeah.
And so how do you, right? Like that name stands for something in the smaller town, but how do you make it mean good service and, stuff like that in the bigger town? Well, and this can get back to the tactics. Well, like, if you don't need digital in a small rural town. If there's 5,000 people in your town and you've been there 100 years, they know you, right? That you're on the corner of Main Street.
Yeah.
They know you. You don't necessarily need a digital ad there. And so maybe we're going to do some digital ads in this bigger area they're trying to move into. But just seeing that brand name on digital is going to start to break those brand associations. But to the patterns we just talked about earlier, like they've got to run it for a long time.
Yeah.
They can't just run it for 3 months and stop.
Try it.
They've got to think about the tactics that work. So I was talking to them about like who is the person that lives within a mile or two of your branch. Like, what is their life like? Where do they commute to? What do they do for work? And what media do they consume? Where should we put ads? We shouldn't just do Google ads by default or this kind of banner ad by default. Like, let's really think through how we do it. Should we put an ATM somewhere? Should we think about putting an ATM somewhere instead of a billboard? And obviously there's cost with an ATM, but like then you've got a presence, then you've got signage. There's lots of different tactics, but fit the main point. Fit the tactic with who you're trying to reach. Fit the tactic with the type of area that it's in.
Yeah. Different treatment for different bugs.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. I think that's profound and important too, rather than just trying it or going with what one of your staff or board members just thinks, hey, I saw another bank did this and it worked. And is it really going to work for you there? And or copycat tactics is that, this regional bank does this approach or this tactic or this, effort, and that's going to work for us as a small town bank or vice versa. It's really, that sounds like it's stating an obvious, but I know, Dan, that you and I see it all the time, and it's swinging a tennis racket at a golf ball that's not going to, it's not going to connect.
Right. A good example there is like, I see there's always a lot of this activity in the market, but lately I'm seeing a lot of bigger regionals doing the, $300 to open an account kind of thing. And it really, they're at a scale where it really works for them because they'll bring in deposits and they can, they have a marketing kind of engine behind that. They, that hopefully they're, applying some like onboarding stuff behind it that smaller community banks don't have. And so it's going to work. It's going to work differently for them. And, a smaller community bank, that tactic isn't going to work the same. It's going to attract, rate shoppers, the people that just want the $300 and, might not work the same for you. So if you want an example to kind of think about, it's that, is that really going to attract the people you want?
Yeah. Well, Dan, I know we wanted to kind of turn the hat around backwards here for a moment and talk about, we've identified and probably relatable to a lot of our listeners, issues and things that didn't work and why they didn't work and how they didn't work or, those types of things. I know we wanted to talk for a moment about the second chance and, okay, let's, the Google ads didn't work or the direct mail didn't work or the whatever it is. And, we've explored the why. So let's look at, reframing. I think is probably a good term for, all right, let's regroup, not throw the baby out with the bathwater. Google is still 83% of the search market and now increasing, levels of that with AI search engines, et cetera. So, it's not that the engines are broken. How are we going to use them? Right.
Yeah. I think it's reframing from like, we tried Google ads and it didn't work to, we tried Google ads, but we didn't have a strategy. We didn't have a good landing page. We didn't have that foundation we were talking about a few minutes ago.
Yeah. Let's do honest evaluation.
Yeah. And let's let's do your postmortem on the process and say, like, I think this is really why it didn't work. Be introspective, be honest with yourself, and say, like, I think we didn't have these pieces to it, and let's retry it, and maybe try it at a smaller budget to start, but not the 500, not a super tiny budget, but like look at what actually happened last time. Look at your metrics. But if you're not a digital team, you might just look at, we got all these impressions, we didn't get any clicks. Well, if you actually look through that every step of the customer experience, like we're talking, you might see something different. So
absolutely. Yep.
Fix it. Yeah. Recognize your budget. Recognize your budget needs a decent chunk for the preparation and the planning.
So the messaging, the process, all the way through, depending on what channel it is that you're talking about, whether it's a digital one or a traditional one, all the way through. You mentioned right sizing the budget, all of those things. So it's taking the time to do that on the front and making sure that we've come up with a plan and a process here by revisiting this that is significantly increasing the odds of success, at a level. And it can even be, and sometimes, Dan, as we know, that now we're talking about an internal challenge. It's like, oh, well, now our CEO or our CFO or even our marketing director or our board doesn't think that works. They're convinced after a swing and a miss that we don't need to try that again. It's like, well, okay, hold on. We're going to try it a totally different way. We're going to do it the right ways with messaging process, outcomes, deliverables, those types of things, and do it right. And so, again, I go to that honest evaluation and then a whole new plan. And another, part of that, Dan, can be, okay, we tried this in-house. We don't know how to do this right. We need to find the right partner. And that can certainly be part of it too. We had a Texas client a couple of years ago that we ended up doing a whole bunch of digital ad campaigns for and all of that. And we ended up with them opening more new deposit accounts than they could have expected from what they were spending in their ad budget and everything else. But it had not worked for them the first time because they had done it internally. And they tried it and it didn't work. And we were doing some other things for them and kind of got wind of that. And we were like, wait. Our team knows how to do that and do it well.
Yeah.
This is part of what we cook in the kitchen all day, every day. So they're like, okay, here's the budget. You guys take it and do it. Boom. And it starts working. So there are all kinds of things here that internally, Dan, I know are just you got to regroup.
Well, Google's incentive and any platforms, any digital ad platform's incentive is to get you to put your credit card number in there and get you to turn on ads as soon as possible. Yeah. Right. So they will AI generate your ad copy for you. They will make keyword suggestions. They will make bid suggestions and, extend this to any other tactic, direct mail, anything like that. Right. Like the incentives of the platforms that do these things are to just get you to spend the money and get it out the door. Right. They're less incentivized they should be more incentivized to get you to get these campaigns to work, right? But they're generally incentivized short term, right? Google knows there's millions of businesses, and then if they get all the businesses to try it super easily, like that's probably worth more money to them, at their next shareholder review than if they help you with your long-term strategy.
That's right. So, but they don't know your brand and they don't know your audience like you do. That's right.
And it's good for them to create more competition. You got to go back and make sure your foundation is there. Make sure the prep is there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I like what we put together, and Dan, I know we're going to share this in the show notes as well because it's okay. A good takeaway is to ask the right questions about a campaign or a tactic going forward, and asking what did we actually do. So really, that's again the self-evaluation. What really went wrong? Boy, we really dropped the ball on the landing page or the creative or the whatever. So what did we actually do? How did we measure success? And Dan, I think that speaks into the expectations you've mentioned on this episode several times. What were the expectations? Did we think we were going to get 19 new mortgages every month? But we had a little bitty budget and we tried one tactic to do that, and the rates are 8.5%. Come on.
Yeah.
No,
so you got,
and then you're like, oh, well, we're measuring our success. We only got one new mortgage inquiry out of the whole thing. And you're like, okay, you measured it wrong also.
Yeah.
So, And then lastly, is what does a real process look like? What is a real, even if we could test it, what's a fair way for us to test ourselves?
Yeah. Yeah. And, like we said a few times here, right size your budget. Make sure the tactics align with who you're trying to reach. And I think if your budget's small, you're not trying to reach the entire market.
Mm-hmm.
Start with one group, and if your budget can be bigger, it can support more groups, more tactics.
Mm-hmm.
But you gotta make everything match.
Yeah, there you go. Well, Dan, I hope this conversation has been really again valuable and informative for all of you guys listening, because, we see this, Dan, way more often than we would like to see. Oh, that didn't work for us. That tactic, that campaign, whatever, just we tried that. And I think with reevaluation and some of the revised approaches that we've talked about today, I think that can be different, resulting in better success.
Yep.
So, cool.
Well, this is great. I feel like I've been to therapy. Like this is,
I know,
to get some of these thoughts out and these kind of long-held beliefs on on how to approach this stuff. So hopefully this helped some other folks.
Well, and Dan, I think we did it without either stepping on anybody's toes or being too sassy about it. Because oftentimes we're sideline witnesses to some of this until we're engaged as an agency to come in and kind of regroup and do it right. Kind of thing. So we watch from the sidelines, and sometimes it hurts to watch.
Yeah.
But I think we've given some better approaches today.
Hopefully, yeah. Maybe we saved one bank from setting up another 30K Google Ads budget
and doing it wrong. Yeah,
the foundation.
There you go. Well, as we mentioned on the front end, Dan, we've had several great episodes with some amazing guests here lately. We've got a couple of others coming up. You and I had some great conversation today. So we want to remind everybody that if you haven't subscribed, just reach up and click and do that. Share this episode or any of our others. Going into fourth season here, it's really amazing to us how this continues to spread and be resource to people in the industry all over the place. So take a moment to do that. Even drop us a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or wherever it is that you listen to this, or catch us on YouTube, and help support the show that way. So,
yeah, much appreciated. Helps us out a lot and helps get the show out in front of more banks.
There you go. Well, connect with us on bankmarketingshow.com. and stick around for some great upcoming episodes. So great to be with you today, Dan. Thanks for the conversation.
Likewise.
All right.
Talk to everybody soon.
Thanks for joining us. To go deeper or get access to some of the valuable nuggets from today's show, go to bankmarketingshow.com. There you'll find episodes, links to resources, and much more. Be sure to subscribe wherever you find your podcasts. And join us next time.